Here we are on the very end of winter, the beginning of March, and where the temperatures are plummeting to freezing, the prices of food are just constantly rising. And many of us now, when we go into a supermarket or a shop, we just can't afford to buy the simple staple ingredients that we're used to seeing in our fridges and our cupboards. And not only that, things are now not being imported. We're seeing less of what we're used to getting at any time of the year, things like tomatoes or peppers. And we're having to now look at what's growing here seasonally in the UK. What are our farmers putting onto our supermarket shelves? And can we make those ingredients into something special? Well, yes, we can. And the place to look is your hedgerow. So I'm going to show you today how we can make purple sprouting broccoli, which is the main crop being harvested in Britain at this time of year in March. I'm going to show you how to turn that into a really exciting dish using so many different seasonal hedgerow flavours. Of course, it wouldn't be March without coming to the local woodland to find a nice glut of Ramson's wild garlic, the main punchy ingredient of our dish. Don't overpick it, just take what you need. So today we're going to make a southern Italy inspired dish using pasta, purple sprouting broccoli and a multitude of hedgerow ingredients. So we've come back to our dry indoor cooking space and we're going to take you to flavours of southern Italy. Southern Italy, but with seasonal British produce. So what is seasonal? Well, we spoke about this earlier. In the fields right now, what's mainly being harvested in the UK is the good old PSB or purple sprouting broccoli. Now broccoli, a lot of people will pull a face, they kind of think boring or it doesn't taste very nice, or maybe they're reminded of a mush that you get served on the side of a roast dinner, or on the side of a plate. Let's make this the star of the show. Let's turn purple sprouting broccoli into a sensation. And how are we going to do that? We're going to use the multitude of wonderful hedgerow ingredients that we found growing in March. So at the very end of the winter, still bitter cold, but we have this glorious selection of ingredients. We've got so many things on the plate here. We've got dandelion leaves, hogweed, three-cornered leek, nettle, pennywort, Ramson's, Alexander's, lesser celandine, cow parsley, hedge bedstraw. There's a lot going on, but that's how we can make this dish really exciting with all those different flavours. So starting with purple sprouting broccoli, we need a little bit of oil, just a chopped white onion in the pan to start, and then we want to sort through this purple sprouting broccoli. Now sometimes you'll see it, especially if you've got a glut, the leaves on the edges are slightly yellowing. Don't worry about that. What you're looking for is that there's no mould spores on the florets themselves. The rest of the floret is perfect to use. Just pick off the ones that don't look appetizing. Into that onion, whilst we're sorting our broccoli out, we want to add some garlic. Now, we've got two types of wild garlic on the bench here, and I've got some smoked garlic paste. Now this is just something I had left over in the cupboard. So I'm going to put a little bit in because I am a big garlic fan. But then I'm going to add my Ramson's, so a nice big handful of my wild garlic, which is everyone's favourite ingredient in the spring. Let that wilt down. Keep a few back because you want a few back to garnish the dish. And then our three-cornered leek, which we've spoken about in previous episodes. Another wild allium of the winter and the spring. And I'm just going to chop those into the pan. Right, so we're just going to cut them into sort of three. You want some chunkiness, some texture to the dish. So not too fine. In goes the purple sprouting broccoli. Starting to add all the exciting flavours now to make this dish sing. We've got our cow parsley. Again, save some back for the end of the dish. That's going to give you notes of aniseed or fennel. Now this dish is inspired by southern Italy, but the flavours, all these wild ingredients are to be found in the native British hedgerow right now. And they're not just coastal, so it's not just here in southeast Cornwall. These ingredients can be found up and down the country. Hedge bed straw. That's going to give us like a little pea, like a mange tout pea-like flavour. So instead of using garden peas, we're going to use our bed straw tops. We've got our young baby hogweed shoots. Remember, they've got the hairy stem, hairy, not scary. Those are like asparagus, like a cross between asparagus and celery. I want to get my Alexander blossoms in next. So we did the Alexander hearts in a previous recipe, but now these lovely big flowers, and they're called umbelliferous or umbellifers because when you turn these plants upside down, they all have the structure of an umbrella on their underside. These little blooms are very punchy, they're very fragrant, sort of a cross between asparagus, celery and parsnip. So you want to be sparing really with those ones, otherwise you're going to crowd out the other flavours in the pan. Rough chop my Alexander blooms. They're so flavoursome, that's going right up my nose as I chop in there. So the rest of the ingredients on my plate here, they will be put on raw towards the end. But we need to add in some superfood. We need to add in some iron and some serotonin. So we picked our young nettles. And the wonderful thing about all these greens, this really is taking us back into wartime sort of cookery, austerity cookery in a way, because you can't put a price tag on these wonderful ingredients. They don't have to be imported. You literally can't run out of them. So our lovely fresh nettle tops, full of iron, serotonin and happiness, they have got to go in the dish as well. And people always say to me, what do nettles taste like, Vix? If you've never tried nettles, I suggest you do so. They taste like nettles. They have a flavour all to themselves and they are delicious. Right, we want to get some protein in there now. So this is not everyone's cup of tea, but I really like oily fish. And it's a really good way to get protein in your diet if you're on a budget and if you like fish. So you can get yourself a little jar, pour some of that oil off actually into that pan and pull out some of these little oily anchovies. And then some butter beans. Now I like butter beans. You could add cannellini beans, kidney beans. I just find these like really umptious and they kind of melt in the mouth. And they work really well with the colours and the flavours of this dish. Some lemon juice. Now you could use a fresh lemon. The price of citrus fruit is rising. So I had some lemon juice left over in the cupboard from a pancake day. And that will work just fine. Ooh, we're getting all steamy. Some pepper. Now I don't add salt, and the reason being is the anchovies themselves are quite salty. So that kind of takes the job of adding an extra seasoning. Now we've boiled some pasta. This is our lovely topping. So this is my favourite way of making the boring bog standard purple sprouting broccoli into a dish that sings with lots of different flavour and ingredients. Right, we want to make this look a bit sexier and we want to add the last of our wild ingredients. So first of all, I'm going to put on a little bit of balsamic glaze. I love balsamic glaze. It's a sweet ingredient and it kind of works in contrast to those oily, salty anchovies. And then we want to put on the layers of our fresh wild ingredients. So I've got some baby hawthorn leaves here, or bread and cheese as they used to be called. Not because they taste like bread or cheese, sadly, but because farmers used to munch on them in the spring because they're incredibly filling and it would fill them up until they got home from work that evening. So there's a nice little trick there if you're hungry and you're out and you see baby hawthorn leaves. Not only is spring unfurling, but your hunger can be halted in its tracks. Using the fresh wild garlic like a herb, sprinkled on the top. Bit of our fresh cow parsley. Just chop that on top. And then last, but not least, A couple of our gorgeous succulent pennywort leaves. I'm gonna cut that one in half because it's a big one. Actually quarters, let's do quarters. Tuck that, and we've got those from our beautiful old tree as we were out foraging. Put those in. That's a nice salady crunch. And then, where's my little delicate, make everything look beautiful and Instagrammable. Our little primrose flowers, like that. And then in the recipe in southern Italy, they use breadcrumbs and they sprinkle breadcrumbs on the top. Now a little trick is if you buy crisps that your children do not like, which I managed to do, they were not good, not to their palate, I just ground them into a breadcrumb and I toasted them slightly in some oil in the oven and made these breadcrumbs, which are always at hand. There's a good way to use up things that might otherwise be put in the bin. So you could use crisps or nachos or just traditional breadcrumbs if that's what you have. So there we have our March finished dish using our purple sprouted broccoli, our seasonal British produce with our many, many beautiful flavours of the hedgerow, giving us something diverse, exciting, that's loved by all the family.